Welcome to Lecture 17, Denialism, Rejecting Science and History. Are there any mainstream scientific beliefs that you don't believe, you don't buy into? For example, 40% of all Americans don't believe in evolution. We have a significant portion of our population that does not believe that HIV actually causes AIDS. We have a lot of people that believe that vaccinations are ineffective in preventing diseases. There's a lot of people out there that are called Holocaust deniers. They believe that the Holocaust never happened. And there's people that simply believe mental illness does not exist. How about the germ theory of infectious disease? There's a lot of people that believe that no such thing. Global climate change. Do you believe that the climate is changing all around the globe? Denialism is a whole separate category of pseudoscientific thinking. Excuse me. And denialisms have something in common, have things in common. One of the big things that denialists have in common is that they begin with their desired claim and then they go to look for evidence to support their claim. Just the opposite of what critical thinking is. Just the opposite of scientific thinking. In the critical thinking, you look at the evidence and then you figure out what the theory is, what explains this evidence. In denialism and most of pseudoscience, we begin with what our claim is, and then we go back to look to see if we can find evidence to support our claim. This leads very strongly into motivated reasoning. When I'm motivated to justify my theory, I'm going to find the justifications for my theory, and I'm going to ignore everything else. Remember cognitive bias? The motivated reasoning brings up this cognitive bias in us so that we overlook the evidence that does not support our theory, and we only see the evidence that actually does support our theory. There's a big difference between being a denialist and being a healthy skeptic. A denialist, I'm going to throw out all this other stuff. I'm going to start with my theory and I'm going to look for evidence. I'm going to specially plead the stuff away that doesn't fit my evidence. And being a healthy skeptic, I'm going to say, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that backs up your claim. But also, show me the evidence that doesn't back up your claim. I'm going to look at the whole ballpark of what the evidence is before I decide, does it fit this claim or not. It's very, very easy to be skeptical of somebody else's theory. It's very, very easy to be skeptical of somebody else's idea. It's much more difficult to really be very, very critical of our own idea. Denialists also have a strong tendency to move the goalpost. One of those thinking errors I brought up earlier in an earlier lecture, to keep demanding more and more and more evidence for a particular claim. And if you can't come up with this other evidence, then of course your theory must be incorrect, which is really this unreasonable demand for evidence, that evidence that can never be provided. In a lot of things out there, it's not one particular piece of evidence that proves this theory false or proves this theory true, but it's this group of evidence. It's all of it taken together that shows this theory is good or this theory is not good. Remember, nothing in science is 100%. It's all provisional. All of the theories in science, and one of the things that makes science so strong is that the theories are constantly being revised. They're constantly growing and changing so that they cover more and more of this information. As the theories grow and change and become adapted, there's fewer and fewer anomalies that don't fit the theories because we've adapted, we've grown. And that's a big, big part of critical thinking, is to grow these theories. Frequently, there is simply one piece of evidence that shows this is true or this is false. That in science it's constantly growing. The denialists have this non-changing theory. that this didn't happen, that whatever, that evolution didn't occur, it's rigid. For a theory to be successful, we expect that when new information comes in, when there's new ways of testing, when there's new equipment, when there's new understanding, that the theory will change, the theory will grow, the theory will evolve into a greater thing. That the more we study something, all these further studies, they will fill in these gaps. There will be fewer anomalies. That our theories will be able to allow us to make even better predictors. Denialists have a strong tendency to dismiss entire categories of evidence. Categories are totally wiped out because of denialists. If you look at Holocaust deniers, then we have to totally dismiss first-hand stories from people who were actually there. We have to dismiss all of the oral stories from not only the inmates in the concentration camps, but also the guards in the concentration camps, the soldiers that liberated the concentration camps. We have to dismiss all the physical evidence that this concentration camp actually existed. We have to dismiss all of the information that came out in all of the trials. I mean, all of this stuff has to be dismissed. If you look at the evolution deniers, well, if you're an evolution denier, you have to dismiss pretty much all of archaeology, a good hunk of anthropology, much of geology. You have to dismiss the entire scientific aspect of genetics, of epidemiology, most of medicine, and the most of biology, as well as so many other things, simply by saying evolution doesn't exist. That when you look at the truth value of something, what are the ramifications of it? What else must you believe? Or in the aspect of denialism, what else must you not believe and not buy into it? And deniers have a strong tendency to take facts out of context. Yes, X, Y, and Z actually did occur, but it occurred within a certain context. And if I take them out of that context, those facts, those events that did occur, really are meaningless because they were meaningful within a context. So deniers will take facts out of certain contexts. When we look at Holocaust deniers, they're liable to take facts out of context with the cyanide aspects of the concentration camps. That it was widely reported that human beings were put into these gas chambers and executed with cyanide. Well, if that's the case, there must be certain physical traces of the cyanide left over in these chambers, and sure enough there is. And they say, well, there's too much cyanide for this to occur. That they also use cyanide for delousing. So all of these other facts as well, and yes, it's true that there is too much cyanide in these delousing chambers, and it turns out it takes a whole lot more cyanide to kill a louse than it does to kill a human being, and so there should be. And when you look at all the facts in context, everything seems to fit. But when you pull facts out of context, things don't fit so well. In our next lecture, we'll be looking at marketing, scams, and urban legends.